It's Thursday, noon 30. Do you know where your president-elect is? We do, because I've got him on the line. And he's telling us that he saw our huge show from last night that will very quickly, just in case you missed it, will very quickly be up on the internet on Facebook Progressive Soup or on YouTube, Kristin 40, Kristin 40. Our show from last night, Robin Hooding, Part 1. And he's talking to us about it right well. He doesn't seem to be too happy about it. And he's saying that he might, after he gets done shutting down the Washington Post, he might come after us.
We don't have Bezos' billions to defend ourselves.
Oh, Bezos of the Washington Post, that's right. He can defend himself.
That's right.
Okay, well, at any rate, last night, Progressive Soup, Robin Hooding, Part 1. And what you're watching now, Thursday, you're watching Robin Hooding, Part 2. Thanks for calling. So,
we were nice about him. I said that that President Obama and Tulsi Gabbard were going to rub off on him.
Okay, now
That was a positive.
where we left off last night, tip of the hat to the cap to who are we tipping the cap to, by the way?
To Tulsi Gabbard.
Tulsi Gabbard. Okay. Tell us about Tulsi Gabbard, and tell us what she and Trump may have been talking about.
Tulsi Gabbard, representative from Hawaii, progressive, was the vice chair of the Democratic National Committee and resigned because of their treatment of one Mr. Bernie Sanders. Which, you gotta say, standing up to resign the vice chair is a huge, huge thing. So she resigns, and they're all astounded that she didn't stand up for Hillary because, well, you know, that's what you're supposed to do if you elevate to that level of the DNC.
Got to be part of the team.
But earlier this week, she met with President-elect Trump. And folks were confused and bemused and amused and wondering why she might do that. There was rumor that he might try to ask her to a cabinet position or to an ambassadorship. But she released a press release, as one is wont to do. And it's interesting. U.S. Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard today, meaning Monday, released the following statement on her meeting with President-elect Donald Trump regarding Syria. President-elect Trump asked me to meet with him about our current policies regarding Syria, our fight against terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS, as well as other foreign policy challenges we face. Grand of him to reach out to an honest-to-goodness progressive. Very interesting. Could just be for show, could be he wanted to know, could be who knows. But
I'll bet he asked her to bring her cat along so he could pet it.
while the rules of political expediency would say I should have refused to meet with President-elect Trump, I have never, and the I here being Tulsi Gabbard, I never have and never will play politics with American and Syrian lives. Can we get that from every senator and every representative, please? I'm begging.
Well, you know,
All I want for Christmas is
my two front teeth.
a little bit of peace, a little bit of peace.
I thought he had hung up. I tried to hang up, and apparently
He's been listening.
he's been listening, and he is a bit disappointed that she did not bring her cat along, because he wanted to pet that cat. He says, refer back to Friday night's, last week's show in the P word, and you'll understand more about. It's sort of like watching. It's sort of like listening to the guy that killed John Lennon and have John Lennon explain that. Have him explain that he killed John Lennon. If you wonder why he killed John Lennon, you have to read Catcher in the Rye, or listening to I Am the Walrus and playing it backwards and finding out why Paul McCartney.
All we are saying
is dead. So he's Drumpf, you're dating yourself. And you're dating us too. Not dating us though. No. So Tulsi Gabbard met with Donald Trump.
And she continues by saying, President-elect Trump and I had a frank and positive conversation in which we discussed a variety of foreign policy issues in depth. I shared with him my grave concerns that escalating the war in Syria by implementing a so-called no-fly safe zone. Now, editor's note, I'm adding this in. Of course, that no-fly zone was something that candidate Clinton was very much pushing for. So implementing a so-called no-fly safe zone would be disastrous for the Syrian people, our country, and the world. It would lead to more death and suffering, exacerbate the refugee crisis, strengthen ISIS and al-Qaeda, and bring us into a direct conflict with Russia, which could result in a nuclear war. We discussed my bill to end our country's illegal war to overthrow the Syrian government and the need to focus our precious resources on rebuilding our own country and on defeating al-Qaeda, ISIS, and other terrorist groups who pose a threat to the American people. For years, the issue of ending interventionist regime change warfare has been one of my top priorities. Some more in here, and she ends with, let me be clear, I will never allow partisanship to undermine our national security when the lives of countless people lay in the balance. Now that is someone that I personally want as a leader.
Bravo. Thank you, Tulsi.
Cheers to Tulsi Gabbard.
Cheers to Tulsi. Kudos to Tulsi Gabbard, a
Cheers.
representative from Hawaii, who stood up to Donald Trump and also stood up to the Democratic National Committee.
I feel like reading some more.
Has Trump brought in? I know what you want. I know that you want to read, but do you think Trump is going to have Gary Johnson in to visit with him? Because Gary Johnson was unclear about whether he knew about where Aleppo was. He thought it was an acronym for something else, and we could go into that and come up with some thoughts for that. But
I still say
he still knows more about foreign policy than Donald Trump does.
But I still say that if you don't know where a place is, you can't bomb it. So I still think Gary Johnson would be great. I mean, this is the thing, right?
Yeah.
Like Trump, Bernie would never do it. But imagine if Trump asked Bernie to be in his cabinet. He would never do it. But I realized something today. I was thinking about this. And we talked about the Democratic establishment being afraid of Bernie.
I think Bernie would be in the cabinet if Trump asked him, because that gives Bernie a position where he can come to every cabinet meeting and try to slap a little sense into Trump.
I think it would be spectacular. I think it would be.
Yeah.
It would drive like 90% of people into a tizzy until they realize that it's genius.
Yeah.
Oh wait.
Although he has the floor of every news media outlet since the election, since his opponent
He has become
lost.
Super Bernie.
He has become Super Bernie, and he's everybody's go-to guy for the media. He was on all the Sunday talk shows. He was on every channel. He was everywhere because people want to know what mistakes were made by not having him in position to whoop Trump.
And they all are sort of half apologizing to him. The Washington Post actually came out and said, we picked the wrong candidate. And in some way, I feel like all of these mainstream media news sources having Bernie on now is kind of their way of saying, we're sorry. And so we're going to give you airtime now. And that's okay, right? Because you're going to save us all, right? You're going to totally fix this mess that all of us made by giving Trump hours and hours and hours of airtime.
He was on 24/7 pretty much because, like Les Moonves of CBS spoke, and he was speaking pretty much for all the media outlets. Hey, every time we start a broadcast with, well, today Donald Trump said, bang. You had everybody that had that station on at that moment was locked in because they all wanted to know what lunacy Trump was up to that day.
So what you're saying is
Free advertising for Trump.
that rather than putting the unfounded blame on the Berners or putting the unfounded blame on the Greens, really the blame should go on mainstream media for giving the now president-elect open season and an open platform and an open mic and an open door policy to say whatever he wanted to absolutely everybody.
And we'll include Fox News in that because they were right in there. They're mainstream media. I mean, they're the number one watch station. So that's
who ironically enough gave Bernie more time than CNN, CBS, NBC.
Who more mainstream than that? You were going to, now we have the book with me, and thank you, Michael Toohey, for supplying me with this book and giving me the opportunity to have it. I appreciate it, Michael Toohey. Good friend of the show, got his own show on television on Comcast. What's his show's name?
I was put on the spot and I failed.
Okay.
In flying colors.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike. Good friend. Mike's going to be on the show pretty soon.
Excellent.
Again, because he's been on our show a number of times. I've been on his show a number of times. But go ahead, read, Maestro.
Mark Ruffalo, I'm coming for your job. You got to read the audio book.
Expose Cinema. Am I too late to tell that? Michael Toohey, Expose Cinema. Thank you very much.
I'm coming for your job, Mark Ruffalo. We're redoing the audio book. I'm going to read it. At the University of Chicago, most of my fellow students were children of college graduates. Their parents were successful professionals or business people. I felt very out of place and a bit over my head. At times, it was quite lonely. While I struggled personally, the University of Chicago opened up opportunities for me that I had never experienced before. I enjoyed many of my teachers, but my intellectual interests were taking me outside of the classroom and into subject matters that were not necessarily part of the curriculum. In Harper Library, the university had one of the great libraries in the country. I spent a lot of time there, deep down in the stacks. While I was often unprepared for class and exams and earning rather unspectacular grades, see, there's hope for all of us if Bernie, with his unspectacular grades, can elevate just by spending time in a library. You know, a library, one of those buildings that has lots of books, not, you know, the B&N and the big places where you buy them, but where you can borrow books. They share them. The non-capitalistic Barnes & Noble. It's amazing. Go find one. It's on a street corner on Main Street in your town. While I was often unprepared for class and exams and earning rather unspectacular grades, I was reading up on all kinds of subjects. I studied history, sociology, psychology, economics, and politics. I read about aspects of American history and life that I had never been exposed to before. I learned that America was not always, quote, the land of the free and the home of the brave, end quote, and that our country was not always on the right side of history. I also read many biographies. I also began to read critically. When I was in high school, if you wanted to win an argument, it was enough to point out that, quote, it said so in the newspaper. See, this is why Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post after going on Amazon and saying that paper books were dead because he wanted to sell the Kindle. So Amazon made their money on books, then created the Kindle, said that books were dead, but then realized that newspapers were important, so Jeff Bezos bought a newspaper. You confused yet? I am. I was learning to my amazement that different publications had different points of view, and that what appeared in a newspaper was not necessarily true. Reason 178,216.9 of why this man is awesome. Mainstream media. We are not here, which is very nice. We are beholden to no advertisers. We are beholden to no political promises. We can speak and not have to worry about having our funding drop out like what happened to the Clinton Foundation after the election. Ha! Hillary, what do we get for $1 if we donate? I was expecting the phone to ring.
I don't think she took any donations under 1,000.
Oh. So, well, maybe now? They say that all the donations dropped off. It'll be curious to see when they, prepare their official, returns, as you have to do as a 501c3,
Yeah.
to see the difference pre-November 8th, 2016 and post. And I guess they do quarterly, so I suppose we won't be able to know until the end of March, depending on how their fiscal year goes, of whether...
Quarterly would be the end of December, wouldn't it?
Right, but they'll still have part of the quarter will be before, so we won't know.
Okay.
But it'll be curious to see if now that there's no chance of her being president, if people are still willing to donate for all the good things that the foundation does.
Wait, hold on.
Inevitable.
Wait. It's Drumpf on the line again.
Hey, dude.
No, I didn't say Drumpf, I said Trump. Drumpf. It's Drumpf on the line again. Said, pay no attention to that unimportant state of California, that unimportant state of Washington, that unimportant state of Connecticut, where Clinton won pretty handily. And in fact, at this point, has delivered her a popular vote lead of 1.5 million the other day, and growing. Hold on. I got Clinton on the line through the miracle of a duopoly phone.
I love it.
I got Clinton on the line, and she says, is there some way that we can have a bill passed that would change us over to the popular vote instead of the electoral vote so she could be president? You want the long answer or the short answer? Mrs. Clinton, here's the short answer. No. Oh, here's the long answer. Nope. Thanks for calling. So, could I read a bit?
Yeah, please do. I had a thought, and I'm calculating. I'm doing the math.
Yeah.
So it might take me a few weeks, but I'm getting there. Ciphering, as the Beverly Hillbillies used to say.
Oh, ciphering. Yeah. That's on the billiard table.
Because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What I had never thought of before is that you can win the presidency with only winning 11 states?
Yeah, if you get the right 11.
Interesting.
Because 11 of them do add up to more than 270 if you get the right 11, including New York, California, Texas, Florida, are probably 4 of those 11.
So in other words, like 11 or 12 states and the rest can just jump in a lake?
Yeah.
See, that's why we do these shows in a nice bistro like this, because most of the time folks listen, but sometimes we do get commentary. I like that.
Yeah, it's nice to get the call-ins. Thank you, rotten candidate number 1, Trump, and rotten candidate number 2, Clinton. Appreciate it very much. Did you do socialism in one city?
I did not.
Okay, well, here you go. This is from Our Revolution. Socialism in one city. Richard Sugarman has been one of my closest friends for 40 years. He is a professor of religion at the University of Vermont, a philosopher, an author of a number of important books and publications, an expert on baseball statistics, and a Hasidic Jew. He also follows politics closely. In late fall 1980, Richard had a strange idea. Run for mayor of Burlington as an independent, he said. You can win. He had analyzed the 1976 results of my gubernatorial run. Statewide, I won 6% of the vote. In Burlington, I won 12%. And in the working class wards of the city, I carried over 16% of the vote. Richard figured that if we focused all of our attention on Burlington, we had a shot to win. We brought a number of our political friends together, many of them former colleagues from the Liberty Union. That's, I believe, the University of Vermont, and talked it out. It would be a tough race. We would be taking on a 5-term Democratic incumbent who had not had serious opposition in years, as well as the entire economic and political establishment of the city. As usual, we had no money or organization. We were starting from scratch. Once the decision to run had been made, the strategy became pretty clear. We would run a campaign based on coalition politics. We would try to bring together under one umbrella the many diverse elements of the city that were unhappy with the current city leadership. And there were a lot of them. Over the years, as is often the case in urban politics, the administration had drifted further and further away from the neighborhoods and the working families of the city, and closer to the downtown business community and the moneyed interests. We reached out to every possible group and organization that we could and had good results. We brought into the campaign some of the municipal unions that were upset about paltry wages, wage increases, and poor labor relations practices. We attracted tenants and their organizations that were gathering very little help from the city as rents skyrocketed. We brought aboard low-income groups that were unhappy with how the city was running the public housing system. We got the support of neighborhood activists who opposed the construction of a highway that would run right through their community. Environmentalists joined us in opposition to a disastrous high-rise condominium project on the waterfront of Lake Champlain, the city's most precious natural resource. And that's a big, long lake, runs north to south, right in between Vermont and New York State. They also joined me in opposition to a major expansion of the hospital that would encroach into a neighborhood. On top of all that, the mayor was proposing a big hike in the city's property tax, something that many homeowners were less than enthusiastic about. Starting in the low-income and working-class neighborhoods, I knocked on as many doors as possible, and what an extraordinary experience that was. Over the years, during my statewide campaigns, and later, of course, during the presidential race, my campaign have spent a great deal of money on TV and radio ads, many millions of dollars. I had never forgotten, however, that the most important political work that can be done in making door-to-door contact, speaking directly to your constituents and answering their questions. We need a lot more grassroots politics in America, and that's what we did as Friends of Bernie Sanders during the 2016 presidential Democratic primary. And you saw the result. We got 46% of the vote in the caucuses and primaries.
Yeah.
We won every caucus and primary where unaffiliated voters were allowed to participate, and all in all, came in very close to capturing the. And if we had gotten 50% or better, if we had gotten over 50% of the delegates, the superdelegates would have followed behind. There was a lot of concern that they wouldn't, that they would stay with Clinton. In my heart, I believe they would have come over. Okay, the big breakthrough for us came late in the campaign when we won the endorsement of the Burlington Patrolmen's Association. That's BPA, I guess. They backed us because I promised to listen to the concerns of cops on the beat and to open serious negotiations with the union. In supporting my candidacy, the police union and its leader, Joe Kropow, showed enormous courage. If I lost, which most people expected, they would be even deeper in the doghouse with the incumbent mayor. There was no question that the endorsement of the police union was extremely important. If a leftist populist, a former opponent of the war in Vietnam, could win the support of the conservative men in blue, we were on our way. Further, I did well in a much publicized mayoral debate, sponsored by neighborhood organizations and organized by soon-to-be co-workers Phil Fiermonte and Jane Driscoll. Jane Driscoll is now Jane Sanders. Election day, March 3rd, 1981, was a day I will never forget. My political gut was telling me one of two things would happen. Most likely, as the media was predicting, we would once again go down in flames. After all, I had never received more than 6% in an election. Why would this campaign be any different? On the other hand, the response we were receiving all over the city was very positive. Maybe, just maybe, we could win a major victory. The one thing I never anticipated is exactly what happened. The election results were extremely close. We won the working class wards in the city by 2-1. We lost in the wealthier neighborhoods. By the time the last ballot was counted, I had won by 14 votes. So stunning was the upset that 9 years later, the state's largest newspaper would still be referring to it as the story of the decade.
So what I hear in this is exactly what happened in the presidential campaign. Is Bernie going around bringing all of the disparate groups together and trying to elevate everybody up to something more.
To the benefit of all
Yeah.
and detriment of none.
Very much so. Other than the 1%.
Okay, quick, little more quickness. I'm still in the same part of the book. 2 weeks after the election, and after we obtained a court order to move the ballots away from City Hall to the safekeeping of the state judiciary, the recount was completed. Well, my margin dropped from 14 to 10 votes. I was elected mayor of Burlington. I was now the only mayor in the country to have bucked the two-party system, the only socialist mayor in America. I was inaugurated in April 1981 before a very large, crowded City Hall. Later, a reporter asked for a copy of the speech I had given, and I handed her my pages of scribbled notes on a yellow legal pad. I was pleased with the speech I had delivered, injecting local issues into the broader national and international context. Well, aren't we all part? Don't people across the globe look at what happens in America, and don't those of us that are caring people look at what's happening elsewhere in the world and be interested in it? One of the immediate crises I faced was purchasing a clothing suitable for a mayor. At the time, I didn't own a suit, just 1 or 2 corduroys. He must have given those away because I don't think I ever saw him in a suit during this campaign. More to continue. Progressive Soup, David Stevenson, Mark Morash.
Bernie, come
Sanders,
on the show.
Our Revolution. Good book, worth read. Thanks for joining us. And that's a wrap.